Do you know that 70% of the microbes that are in your gut can be identified in your fields? There's an association there. When we talk about the future-proof farm, it's going to have to involve the microbes. You see, those of us who've been at this for a while, and of course, I know Dave Brandt, you all know him. We've been doing this for a while. Our first thing was pretty much identified as no-till. Then we got into cover crops. And then in the 90s, it was starting to be more soil health, diversity, and things like that. And it seems like almost every one of us have a similar progression to nowadays we're talking about nutrient density. Nutrient density food, whether you're growing vegetables or whether you're growing corn or soybeans. And to get nutrient density food, you have to pay attention and help the microbes. You can't do it with all the synthetic stuff. You have to pay attention to the microbes. That's how our soil was designed to function. And that's what we have to understand. So wherever you're at today, if you're coming here to maybe think, I maybe should start no-tilling, or maybe I should start planting a cover crop. Maybe I should start getting more diverse in my cover crops and in my cash crops. Maybe I should start thinking about soil health in a broader context. Maybe I should start thinking about the context of soil health, crop health, and our human health, not only as a person yourself, but as a society. Wherever you're at on that today, I hope that I can inspire you and challenge you to take a step further in that direction. That is where the future-proof farm is going. It's all about the microbes. This is the first picture I knew of that I could find on the internet from my farm in the 1940s when my grandfather bought it. He actually bought it in 35. The fields were all square. What you can't see in this picture is the rolling hills, but that's the way my grandpa did it because that's the way everyone did it then. And you can see there's ditches. I outlined them. You can actually see them from the air. Move up to 71, contoured the farm. That's what was popular in our area and many parts of the country. But you can still see the ditches. I was born in 1964, so I saw this with my own eyes. And this is really what got me to thinking this isn't right. Now, this isn't a picture from 1971 because I didn't know I'd be here today talking to you to show you that. And honestly, that's what got me in this journey, the ditches. That I had to close some years in order to harvest my corn and beans and other crops, vegetables. I grow a lot of vegetables. Started using cover crops then more intentionally in the 1990s. Got interested in a cover crop roller, which I heard about from Brazil. And one of the driving factors of using a roller was, I'm going to ask you a question, what was the price of Roundup in 1996? Anybody have an idea? It's about 40 or 50 bucks a gallon. We've surpassed that today again. Now rollers, I legitimately, one of the main reasons I got a roller other than getting the crop down was to save on Roundup cost. And here we are again today. And I just talked to Jake Blank of I&J Rollers, who a lot of you are familiar with. He said if you'd order one today, there's none available. They're booked total. So here we are, kind of what goes around comes around sometimes. So this is what my story was. Also, as mentioned about the Tillage radish, this is the first plot way back in 2001, 20 years ago. Can you believe it? It's incredible, how these things have evolved over time. But I wanted to show you this picture. This is 2017, late spring. Now look at the farm. No ditches. It's green. And this is the goal here of what I had to stop soil erosion. That's what got me into this journey. What has gotten you in your journey? And I don't care if you're a farmer or you're a researcher or an educator. What got you here today? What was the epiphany that happened? And then what are you trying to do for the future, for the next 100 years? Have you ever thought about the next 100 years? in the way you make your decisions today. You have to think about that. It's your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, hopefully, that may be farming that land or growing food in this case. So we look over the years, we see the development, we see the progress, and it's not going to stop. We live in an ever-changing world. And I myself am ever-changing. I am learning things. I am here to this conference to learn today as well. You know, we were sitting around last night, some of us, just talking about where we're at, where are we headed. And if you don't pay attention to where we're headed, and I'm not talking about those in this room, if you don't pay attention to where your customers are headed, your end customers are not here today. What do they want? What do they want, how you should grow your food? Now, our customers don't always get it right. And sometimes we have an antagonism toward our customers that you don't understand. I'm saying there is some of the things that they want that we can do, and that's our opportunity today here, ladies and gentlemen, to take advantage of what our customers, our end users want. There are some things they want. And they do want, how do you want to say this, environmentally friendly practices. So, that's another topic for another day probably, but I'm just, putting that out there. This is my home county, Lancaster County. We're in the bullseye, you might say, of the Chesapeake Bay. Lots of good farmland, but lots of animals. Lots of nutrients come in, be it corn and soybeans, to feed all those animals. And we have some problems with excessive nutrients. Chesapeake Bay has had problems. That's starting to turn around now. It took 30 years before we saw a difference in the bay. But you just look from the air. This is the first week of December, a couple years ago. I hired a pilot to take me around, take these pictures, just to show you 70% of the fields now have cover crops. And here's something that might surprise you. Only about 15% of that's subsidized. Now, part of that is because of the large Amish community. Don't prefer that. But I'm just saying, we can make cover crops pay. Either these farmers are stupid or they're on to something. I think they're on to something because some of us don't take the subsidies anymore. It's not worth the paperwork because we see the benefits that it gets. I'm not saying that's what you have to do. I'm just saying that there is certainly a benefit to this way of farming. You see, you can't buy soil health. None of the exhibitors down there are selling soil health. It has to be made. You, the farm operator, you, the educator, you're the helping to manage that. It's all about management. Yes, we have tools, but it's about management that's going to make this work. Now, question. Do you know how your soil and how to manage your soils in the way they were designed to function? Loaded question. Can you have a working answer to that question? Do you know how your soils were designed to function? Think about that, maybe on your way home or whatever. You see, if we go back, the soils here in Ohio and wherever you're from were formed by multiple species and had living roots in the soil at all times. And I would say if every one of us would move out of the Midwest, we'll say, the whole country would be green with growing plants. That's the way God designed it. We fight that, and I understand that because we're trying to grow food. I'm just saying, do you understand how soil is designed to function? We have to have this understanding in order for us to grow food. Now, we could go out and all forage for berries and nuts. Well, that's nice maybe on a Sunday afternoon, but I'm not interested in, my survivability, all that. So how can we take these principles and apply them to growing food? Well, multiple species, cover crops. All year round, life in the soil, cover crops. So that's kind of easy answer, if you will, but it does get a little more complex than that when we try to figure it all out and manage it. Where is agriculture headed? On the left side there, I saw a field I estimated over 1,000 acres, moldboard plowed in Hungary. We were there, I guess it's 4 years ago now, for the first soil health conference ever in the country. And that was pretty cool, but they're just started. I mean, miles and miles of this we saw. Or is agriculture headed where the soil is covered and there's something growing in it? I think we all know the answer. But wherever you're at today, in your history, in what you're doing, you have to move further in this direction, myself included. And a lot of times in agriculture, we think of things as a one-year plan. Do cover crops pay? And whenever that question's answered, it's always in the context of 1 year, and I hate that. You have to think of it as a 10-year plan. Because how many of you have ever lost money on corn? Maybe you have, some on a dry year. Let's just take crop insurance out of it here for answer this question. How many of you ever lost money on corn or soybeans? That doesn't mean you give up on it. Well, you understand why. Cover crops, some years, things don't work out to your benefit because you're using cover crops. But after you do it for 5 or 10 years, your soil is going to become more resilient, that you can resist or do better in those stressful years. Everybody knows that. That's been doing it. They see it. They see it on their farms. So what is your 10-year plan? I'm not saying you need to know what year 10 is exactly going to be. It's more of a mindset. But you got to think about this whole thing in more than 1 year. That's what I'm trying to say. What are you doing today to ensure healthy food in the next 100 years? Most of us never think of that. But there's more and more, I guess you would say, chatter going on about how we need to have more healthy food. I think one thing COVID has done is it's moved us a little bit more to being concerned about building up our own immunities. A little bit. I hope that aspect of it continues, because we can become more immune in our bodies, just like we are trying to do in our fields. That's the whole premise of the soil health movement, isn't it? We're trying to be more immune from insects, pests, disease. We need to think about that as our own bodies as well. And that all comes back to how food is grown. See, I want to draw together here the connection of the soil and our human health. Soil is a living organism. You probably heard this. In 1 teaspoon of healthy soil, there's like billions of microbes and bacteria and fungi. It's hard for us to fathom that. But there is. And I love this little sub-point here. It's the soil, and us, actually, is a collection of cooperating communities of microbes. And this is why I keep bringing up the microbes. Because there are communities of them. They work together. They work in synergy. It's like 1 + 1 = 3. And what we do, the way we manage our fields affects that. And so this is just my point here. Now, some practical, where are we at today? What are some of the greatest barriers to farmers from implementing soil health practices? And I will just say, it's the existing models. It's the existing models and the existing knowledge. I don't blame my grandpa for farming square fields and plowing everything up, because that's what everybody did. I'm not going to blame him for that. But I think he would be proud of me now to see that farm that he farmed, 90 years ago. What are we going to be talking just 10 years from now and thinking, wow, back in 2022, I can't believe we did that. I don't know. It'll be something probably. But again, Ari, this is what I need to lay the foundation to help you to move on, to move up, maybe you want to say. Existing models work very well in dysfunctional soils. Now keep in mind, almost every point that I make here also applies to our own bodies. And that's really what I want your take-home message to be today, the connection between healthy soil and healthy humans. And so, mainstream agronomy is successful for dysfunctional soils that already have been degraded. We've done a good job at degrading our soils collectively in agriculture in the last 100 or so years. These models were created and designed on that basis. The problem is they will keep you with a dysfunctional soil forever. So, we got to get off the treadmill. We got to think differently. Our soils are sick, and you could say addicted to drugs. Now, I'm not, just so you know, I'm not saying no drugs, legal drugs, prescription drugs. I'm not saying no to all that. I'm not saying no to a lot of the products that are here being sold today. No, I'm saying we've used too many. We've depended on that model too much. So, synthetic fertility pushes aside the natural microbes and makes them lazy. That's a farmer's way of saying how it is. You know, I'm not a scientist. I don't know. There's probably a better way to say it. I would just say a little thing here, and I'm not going to get into detail, but soil-applied fungicides do kill some of the good guys. And I'm just giving you a little example out there, just to think about how all this may work. You see, here's a typical scenario now in our healthcare system. The healthcare professional says, oh, you have a disease caused by your diet. And the patient said, well, should I change my diet? And the healthcare professional says, oh, no, not at all. Here's a pill. Now, do you get the connection in agriculture? It's the same thing. So I'm just thought-provoking stuff here. Think about paradigms. Think about where we need to be headed. I would say, yes, you might want to change your diet, but not your diet, but what's in your diet. That should be the correct answer for that. How's that all going to look? It's going to look different for everybody. But anyway, it's a challenge. I hear oftentimes, guys are saying, well, I'm going to spray my field. I'm just going to put in a little insecticide. It's only $3 an acre. It's insurance. That's like taking chemotherapy to prevent cancer. Who would ever do that? Maybe over the top, but I want you to think. We can't be killing the good guys. We need to nurture and support them. Here's something interesting. Our pets and animals are routinely fed supplements and minerals. Next time you're in a grocery store, start looking at a few labels on the pet food. You'll see more minerals on that label for the pet food than you will see on the human food. Why is that? Because pets are generally not covered with health insurance. Right? You have to keep your animals alive and well, so you feed them minerals. We tend not to do that. You know, why do we take minerals and supplements as human beings? Because it's not in our food. There's billions of dollars out there, and I'm not against that. That's good. But what if we could grow our own medicine? Now, that could be exciting. But who's going to make money off that? The problem is you can't patent that stuff. And you could say that's one of the weaknesses of our system. But those of us in our room can lead the way here in doing that. I would also say, as an aside, is crop insurance a barrier to healthy soils? I was never, thank you for the amen. I was never more in tune with that when I was in Australia. You know that Australia and New Zealand pulled all subsidies like 30 years ago now? Created a lot of angst. 20% of the farmers went out of business. But we know what's interesting in Australia. Instead of seeing 2 or 3 grain bins at a farm, you'll see 10 or 15 grain bins. Why? Because they're growing 6 or 7 different cash crops. And you know what they told me? That's our crop insurance. Diversity. Our system here is screwed up. And I don't know what to do. I've been in the halls of DC back in 2012 trying to convince them that cover crops are not bad. And the RMA told me, literally told me, we said, but the NRCS is promoting cover crops. The NRA person's, RMA, get my acronyms. The RMA person said, well, the NRCS is going to have to stop doing that. Well, fortunately, that's changed. But that was a fight some of us had early on. And I'm saying this is another fight that, I'm not going to get into today. I'm just saying some of the barriers to doing all this. So, we take vitamin minerals because our food is junk food. That's the whole premise out there. And again, I'm speaking in generalities. I think you know that. I just want to make you think. We can make better food. I know because I'm doing it. I'm testing my butternut squash. I'm working with the Real Food Campaign and the Bionutrient Association, where their goal is to create more nutritious food. But even for the corn and soybeans you grow, if you can pack more nutrients into that, you'll be able to fatten a pig quicker. You'll be able to milk a cow better and all that. And again, it may sound idealistic, but that is where we need to go. 100 years ago, they wouldn't have thought you could put a person on the moon. Well, we done her. So this is big questions out there that I feel we need to try to strive to go for. So if you want to restore a dysfunctional soil to its full biological potential and function, you need to treat it differently. You're going to have to walk out of this room today and think a little differently. That's another one of my challenges. You need to regenerate it. And here is a really cool word I just heard. Functional diversity. Functional diversity. That's loaded. But it really means more than no-till and cover crops. You know, we're probably all I'm preaching the choir here in that part. But diversity of species is what we need to focus on. Why? Because that's what's going to encourage the microbes so that we can reduce some of those expensive fertilizers, which I'm going to talk about after lunch over in the other chapel over there. So, again, this is the secret, diversity. I know I'm talking to a corn soybean group here, and I know that I'm not living in Ohio. I'm in a small farm in Pennsylvania, and yes, I grow vegetables. Sorry about that, can't relate to everything, but I've been all around the world. I've been on 40,000 acre farms in Bulgaria. The problems are no different everywhere I go. I don't care if you grow vegetables or not. I don't care if you're a corn soybean farmer. You're going to have to think differently. I have to think differently as we move forward for our future-proof farm. The secret is the microbes. We have to think about how we're taking care about the microbes. And the famous quote fits here, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. You are the managers for that. Those of you in education, you're influencers. I challenge you to think differently. I challenge you to think where the future is going and all the work that you do. And those of you doing research and so forth, I challenge you to think about this, to study this. There's lots of information out there that you can glean from to learn the benefits that this ultimately will do. You say, well, that sounds cool, Steve, but so what? Well, there's some interesting things on here that I think are helpful. Nutrient density I talked about, lower inputs. I don't think the prices of our inputs is done going up yet. It's crazier by the day out in this world. I don't know. But I'm just saying, and again, I'm not being arrogant, but I feel like saying, see, I told you so. I feel like saying that. Those of us who have invested for decades, this isn't going to affect us as much because you just can't flick a switch and say, okay, I'm going to no-till, I'm going to grow a cover crop, and I don't have to use any fertilizer. Takes time, not just for the process, but for you as a manager to learn. So the benefit we have here at a group like this is you can tap into people who have done this and made mistakes so you don't have to. Public support or higher profits, you know, if you're done right, again, that has to do with markets. I get all that. I'm not going to talk about that. Public support. When someone asks me, a non-farmer in my home area, so what are these cover crops that I see you talk about? And I say, I plant cover crops to keep nitrates out of your well water. Oh, thank you. All of a sudden, I'm a hero farmer now. True. Public support for this stuff. It's an easy story to tell, cover crops. Soil health, regenerative agriculture. It's an easy story to tell. Healthier population. It's going to take a while to get there. But I'm just saying, that's what we're after here. If we can keep that in mind, I know we have a lot of headwinds from a lot of different angles, but that's our goal. What does healthy soil look like? A lot of us know. A lot of it you can tell by looking on the surface. You can make a quick assessment just walking into the field. But what's below the surface is soil health, I say, is what is causing the microbes of biology to function. Here's that word again, functionality. To function so that plants can function. We've had it all backwards. We've always been looking at plants. I'm saying we got to go one step back and look at what's back there. What is making how for the plants being able to function? We need to restore the biology of the soil. Microbes need healthy food, water, and air, and shelter, just like us. Even if you think about it, you know, a lot of truth to it. That's what can we learn from nature? This is my woods. Look at that. It's beautiful green. Lovely. A lot of diversity. Living roots year-round. How many of you ever took a soil test of the woods? I wouldn't doubt, I don't know if it's going to compare to mine, that the soil test will look pretty bad according to some of the nutrients that are available. Here's mine. Green is good. 11% organic matter. Holy cow, that's awesome. Okay? Green is good. Red is bad from the context of growing. How do you see this with a soil test like that? It's the biology. Calcium. 7.3% base saturation. And we have this. That goes against everything we've been taught. Now, I know it's not corn. I know it's a woods. I'm just saying it's the biology that makes this work. Because we've been taught to control nature. What am I going to kill today? What do I need to kill today? That's what we've been taught. But I would suggest your thought, your paradigm shift is, how can I get more life into my operation? Yes, life and death is a fact of life. And the way we grow food, got to think about this, but let's shift it. How can I get more life? How can I mimic nature? Covered my soil, keep it covered at all times. I love this picture. Rolled down hairy vetch and rye, 6 foot tall, no-till planted, 15-inch corn, chopped it off from a silage from Amish neighbors, went right back in there, planted a cover crop that's coming out through the residue of my previous cover crop. In the meantime, I grew a nice silage corn in that. This is the way we can mimic nature. You see, headwinds. Most farmers' education comes from retailers who are selling products. That's okay, as long as you have a retailer that's not too biased for their products. Who are the champions promoting soil health? Generally not the pesticide, the fertilizer dealer, or John Deere. They're not leading the charge for soil health. It's generally a lot of you that are in this room here that are leading that charge. Because you know what? In our whole advertising, fear is effective. The fear of losing yields is a powerful marketing tool. Keep that in mind. If you would take a farm magazine and add up all the bushels of all the products in there that you could make, you should be all growing 500 bushel corn. Well, that ain't going to happen. And I'm just saying, using an example. We, as farmers, need to rediscover the art of farming. Not against crop advisors and all that. I'm just saying, we need to take back a little bit, I think, because we know our soil best. But the challenge is researching this stuff. Researching the influence of the biology is slow, hard to quantify, and is affected by many variables. Just putting it out there. But here's how you can be successful. I've had this slide in my presentation for probably 15 years. Treat your cover crops like your cash crops. If you do that, you'll stand a better chance of success because you just can't throw on cover crops and expect miracles. It just doesn't happen that way. So, the profit is in the management. Again, challenging you to think about it's you, the manager, who's going to make a difference. Just a quick example. Clover, crimson clover, and some hairy vetch there. No tilling into that. I added 80 pounds of N, $5 worth of herbicide, rolled it, 27 tons of silage. That did include the acre and a half that the deer damaged at the end of the field. But you know what's really cool? My Amish neighbor said, the cows really milked well off that silage. Wonder why. I don't know, but I think high nitrogen rates somehow aren't good for the quality of our food. And I'm going to leave it at that. I just think that. You see, cover crops make good farmers better and bad farmers worse. And that's all because of the management. You often hear this. This doesn't work on my farm. And I get this all the time. Well, that's really a metaphor for, I don't know much about this and I don't want to learn either. We all know people like that. So I'm saying you have to learn and find who your mentors are. This is a solution to that. These are some of my mentors that I've leaned on, called up, text, email, what have you. Some of these are international. Find a mentor. A mentor is someone who is doing what you want to accomplish. That's key. Someone that's doing what you want to accomplish. So, we have managed our soils with economics in mind. rather than functionalities. And first you're like, Steve, we need to make money. Yes, but if you truly understand functionalities, the soil, if you understand the functionalities of the soil, the economics will follow. A loaded comment, but I believe it's very true. This is going to require top-level management and learning to be able to do this. I was in Hungary. This is the number 6 soil pit I was in. I was touring the country. Not one earthworm. I said, don't you guys have any earthworms? No, we don't have any earthworms. I walked over to that woods. The first shovelful found an earthworm. 100 feet from that soil pit. They couldn't believe it. I said, this is what you need to be doing out in your fields. You mimic nature. That was a great, great show and tell. So again, as Will Rogers has said, Randall, it isn't what we don't know that gives us trouble. It's what we know that ain't so. Right, Will? Anyway, I was in France and actually got invited again back to Hungary. I've been there a couple times. Bonduelle is the largest company in the world for frozen food. They own Green Giant, by the way. You might have heard of them. They're around here. They had me there. Why? Their motto is, if you know French, I'm going to bungle it, la nature, nature, future, or whatever. Really means, it's talking about the future of agriculture is working with nature. This is the largest company in the world that's doing this. Why do they bring me over to do that? Because they want to be able to say that they're using cover crops in their sweet corn production. I grow for some restaurants. This was a restaurant, chain of restaurants called Sweet Green down in south of Washington, D.C. Went in there with our family between Christmas and New Year's, and they had listed our squash that we were growing there. They sought me out because they heard of the way I was growing my vegetables. The line was busy, and I finally had to ask the gentleman, I said, can you just wait here? I want to take a picture of me, because that's my farm. Listen, my son, he goes, you're a farmer? I said, yeah. He reached his hand out, said, I never met a farmer before. Shook my hand, said, thank you for what you do. You know what I thought? I never get that kind of reception at the grain elevator. But I'm just telling you, this is out there. This is the reality, an appreciation for what we do. I've been growing crimson clover for 2 years to make crimson clover tea. I didn't even know there was such a thing. It's a hard process to do, but anyway, been doing it. So using cover crops in that nature. Cleaner pumpkins, a little bit of my world. Clean pumpkins is what is motivating to sell pumpkins. 75% of pumpkins in Pennsylvania are now no-till. And where's my pumpkin guy here that I talked to you right before? I forget your name now.
Brad.
Hey, okay. Brad told me that now Walmart and Kroger are requiring cover crops in pumpkin production. I didn't know that until this morning because they're cleaner. Okay, that's cool. Why not? We can do it. Oh, who likes Guinness? Doesn't matter. It's a famous brand. They just came out with this, Better Soil, Better Guinness. They're doing a project with 40 barley farms in Ireland, a 3-year project, highlighting the opportunities of reducing carbon emissions of barley production. And it goes on of regenerative agriculture and so forth. These are major companies that are doing and concerned about what I'm talking about. Pepsi, we've all heard of that. They're going to promote regenerative agriculture across 7 million acres of farmland. Go Google it, look it up. Interesting. So again, you may be sitting here thinking, I'm just a corn bean farmer. Well, eventually it's going to trickle down. You will have to do something that will show some sort of soil health practice. I don't know what it's going to be. Carbon projects. There's all kinds out there. I haven't found any I like because they're not rewarding us long-term guys. Well, I don't know. That may change. There's a new one called Right. And I'm going to say full disclosure, I am on the farmer advisory of this, but it did appeal to me. I'm not endorsing it. They said, hey, Steve, we'd like your opinion. RIPE, paying $100 an acre, doesn't matter what the history is. Oh, that got my attention. Again, they're looking at this as putting it in the 2023 Farm Bill. Don't know if it's going to happen. I'm just putting it out there. Maybe this could be for some of us. RIPEroadmap.org. Look it up, RIPEroadmap.org. If you want to look into that. Just some of the things that may be coming down the pipe. Oh, here's a new one. Oh, you want to take a picture of that? Here, I'll back up. I'll give you a chance. Okay, get the camera. I should have warned you before. But I've been saying for years, if there's ever an organic replacement for Roundup, that's going to be really interesting. I mean, again, I'm not dissing Roundup. Roundup has been overused. We'll probably all agree with that. But it's also caused some issues, I think, in our soil as well. So I just found out about this new one, HARP bioherbicide. It's supposed to be kind of in between Gramoxone and Roundup. There's 3 modes of action. And I just want to share this with you today because we're talking about the future. If this is for real, and I know Bill Buckner, who's the CEO. Some of you might know that name. I know Bill. And I guess you have to say I trust him because I've known him. He's working with this company, and it's intended to be organic approved. Now, it doesn't quite have the systemic as Roundup, and it does require a high gallon per acre, like 20 gallon per acre, because it's more of a contact. But interesting indeed. Safe and sustainable. Look it up. A HARP bioherbicide. I don't know if there's a video going to play here or not. Probably won't. That's okay. But you can go on that harpbio.com. Check it out. This to me is kind of interesting, I think, because in combination with rolling cover crops, it might be something we could do. Okay, just a few things here. I want to wrap this up here and just show you a few things. I apologize. A few of my slides here got a little bit out of sequence. I don't know what happened. But this is what I'm trying to grow. This is what I'm trying to do. Mixed species cover crops. Going in and rolling them down. And actually what I'm leading up to is I also grow CBD hemp. And you know, you've all heard about the euphoria of that in 2019, and then all of a sudden no demand for it all. But I decided to get my own brand. Well, I had no idea where that was all going to lead me. But here we are, no-till transplanting CBD hemp. Maybe the first time it was ever done, I don't know. But pretty cool to do, right? Doesn't that look pretty cool? I just think it is. So I'm now working with the Hershey Medical Center, and my CBD, they called me up one day and they said, we'd like to have a talk with you because we're seeing your CBD is above everybody else's that they've tested. Oh, okay. So I told them about what I do, and they said, yeah, I could see there could be a connection with the soil health thing. So they're actually killing colon cancer cells. They're killing melanoma cancer. The pain alleviation is similar to Tylenol with plants that I grew. That, to me, is exciting. Better soil, better oil. That's my tagline. Who would have ever thought that 40 years ago, what motivated me was closing ditches has now led to hopefully treating cancer. It's going to take some years. But if I can grow cancer treatments, wow. That's awesome. That's where the future's going for some of us. So I got a quiz here. Someone, be quick. See how close you're listening? Name one international company who is intentionally promoting regenerative agriculture. Okay. Ralph Lauren. I didn't mention that, but I heard that. Okay. My wife is going to bring you one of my books up there. You get the prize. There you go. Congratulations. So my challenge here, finally, where are you headed? Where are you headed? What are you going to do to make a difference? And again, I wrote this book. It has a lot of stories about my travels. It's not a how to grow cover crop book. Just making that clear. It's a lot of reading and give you inspiration so that you can go out and be a better farmer at what you do and see where the future's going. I want to give farmers a heads up. It's how I call it, of where the future of agriculture is going. So your farm in the next 100 years, what will it look like? Our challenge, and I'm putting me in that, our challenge is to better understand how the microbes function. Our challenge is to better understand how the soil functions. And then our challenge is to better understand how the planet functions, and I would say has designed to function. And finally, to better understand how the climate is designed to function. It all interacts, and it all starts with the microbes. And that's the challenge I want to leave to you today. Soil health is in your future. It's in my future. This is my first grandchild, showing her her first earthworm. And the inquisitiveness that she had by looking at that squiggling earthworm, it almost made me emotional. What that meant to me to show my grandchildren what soil health looks like. So thanks, Randall, for inviting me. I appreciate it. I'll be around the rest of the day. My book's downstairs. If you want to buy it, my wife will be down there selling it right as you go down. So again, thanks for having me out here again, Randall.